Welcome to Marion County Today. I'm Janet Carlson, Marion County Commissioner, and with me is Kevin Cameron, also Marion County Commissioner. And we're here to talk to you about the Marion County Reentry Initiative and what we've been working on. So Kevin, you're working at the state level at the Governor's Reentry Council. Tell us a bit about your work there.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and it's been great to work with you since I think about 2006 or 7 on this issue. So yeah, I continue to serve on the Governor's Reentry Council, and one of the things that I co-chair the Business Implementation Committee with Genevieve Martin from Dave's Killer Bread Foundation, and we are launching a statewide Second Chance Tour to help connect up employers with people who need a second chance in the employment market. So what we're going to be doing is, it's fortunate that the kickoff for this is on April 10th here at the Salem Convention Center. We have the governor obviously will be there to kick it off, but we have a keynote speaker who's coming to us. His name is Scott Bundick, and he is the founder of the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. And some people that are watching this may know Scott better, as he was the producer of the Hangover series, the movies that were out. So we're excited about that. And then once this kickoff happens, we're already engaging other regions around the state. We're enlisting the help of many statewide organizations and business organizations to bring people together as we do a mini conference in we may be up to as many as 8 different regions in the state, where we're going to try to bring those employers and employees together and knock down some of the barriers to hiring. As you and I know, even in our positions, we've seen barriers that got thrown up, and we've been working on this for years.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Real excited about that, and many different people are working to bring this around to the state, and it's coming right here from Marion County as a result of the hard work that you've been doing. And you know, speaking of that, we just last week we had your, I think, 9th annual
right.
Reentry breakfast with over 200. It was 215 people there, and it was an honor to be there. And of course, I say, and I've heard this from many people, that was probably the best. And of course, your leadership is really great in those areas. So you maybe want to share a little bit about how that went and things you're working on there.
Absolutely. So we've had the Marion County Reentry Initiative now for more than 10 years. And this was our 9th annual Giving People a Second Chance breakfast, as you talked about. So it's an opportunity each year for us to report to the community how we've been doing, to celebrate our successes, and really to educate the community on different topics around reentry. And we've kind of expanded our vision from the beginning, because at the beginning we were really just about post-prison. People go to prison, pay their debt, come out, and then we want to help them reintegrate in society. But now, with a number of changes at the state level, we're actually diverting some nonviolent offenders from prison for possession of drugs, property crimes, those types of things, and they get served right here in our community with wraparound services and substance abuse treatment, those types of things. So we really want to kind of expand our vision there about, you know, what works and how things are going. So we've talked about employment. You were in that video when we talked about the window washing contract for the state of Oregon, and we've talked about families and children. We've talked about victims. We've talked about housing over the past 9 years, and this year we decided we were going to focus on mental health. It's a topic that's really at the forefront of the national conversation, and certainly we have seen issues here in Marion County, and the homeless issue connects, I think, with mental health also. So we were able to do that at the breakfast in a couple ways. We have a couple videos, and for the listening audience, on the credits, we'll show you where you can go on our website to be able to find them on our YouTube channel and actually play them over and over again. But We had one video that we put together that had some of our leaders that have been working on mental health services really kind of defining what mental health is and what it isn't, and then talking about particularly some of the public safety mental health partnerships that we've been doing, mobile crisis teams, crisis outreach response team, crisis intervention training, our 24-hour psychiatric crisis center to really help people understand what services are out there and what we're doing to address the issue. And then the second part of the breakfast was really around a personal story of a friend of mine. I've known Jill, I think for about 5 years now, and I've been her advocate, met her through my church. I was the women's leader, and I remember she called me. I was coming back up from Roseburg, and the phone call came in Eugene and didn't end until Albany, and she was telling me about these cats, and I'm thinking, oh boy. So I started out just thinking, well, it's a quick problem and I'll solve it. But as I got more and more involved in her life, was able to help her with a number of things, but also really able to forge a relationship with her. So we call the video Jill's Story, and it's going to be a story that I think people are going to enjoy seeing. So.
Yeah, I loved it. I know at my table there wasn't a dry eye when we were watching it, and for you to share your personal story and how it's impacted you, and I think at the end of the video, I think people will see the impact that you think you're starting out to help somebody else, but when you really serve somebody, you're really touched and impacted and blessed in your own way by doing that. And I just want to say thank you here on the record for being able to serve with you and to have you be a leader and be vulnerable like that. It was great. So.
Well, thank you for your leadership. Yeah, we worked together on this for a number of years, as you said.
So we've got a long ways to go, but we're making progress, and I think it is one life at a time and one relationship at a time. That, you know, if I think back of the people that have impacted my life, it's one-on-one that have the biggest impact. So you'll get to see that, I think, in this video.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so now we will turn to Jill's story.
Hi, Jill. Hi. So tell me what it means to you to be at this event today.
Hi, what it means to be at this event today is we're celebrating recovery once a year in Salem, Oregon, and around the world across the bridge. It's called Hands Across the Bridge.
So when I first met Jill, she was struggling quite a bit. So that experience came with a lot of pain, a lot of palpable pain. And what was always interesting to me about my interactions with her is that no matter how much she was struggling, there was always connection and kindness and warmth.
I needed a way to get to pick up my daughter in Vegas to meet my dad. We always had a mutual meeting ground in the LA area where we would kind of meet her in Vegas, and then I would drive back up here. And because I didn't have a car, my friends in high school gave me a brand new car off the car lot and told me it was okay, you know, go pick up your daughter. I got in the car and proceeded on down towards California. I got there a little bit early because on the drive there, I did go into a psychosis. And I'm at McDonald's wondering where they are and thinking that my dad was going to keep my daughter from me. And then the following evening, my dad did show up and we got into a dispute, which we have never done. And he didn't want to give my daughter to me, and I couldn't understand that. And let her come into the car and take her home. I grabbed her. While I'm grabbing her out of the car, and he's trying to stop me and told me that he was going to call the police. And I said, okay, call the police. I'm taking my daughter home. I don't understand your problem. And he was telling me, Jill, you shouldn't be driving. Something's wrong. You're not acting right. He was trying to explain to me. And I wasn't understanding what he was saying. I'm fine. I don't know, what are you talking about? I'm not okay. And put her in my car and took off without even putting seatbelts on. Probably back then it would be kind of like an Amber Alert that went out along I-5. They were looking for me. My daughter went to my mom and dad's in Vegas, and my dad died suddenly of cancer, and my mother couldn't take care of her, so she went to a foster care. I went to Biscaloo, an institution for mentally ill people in California. I hated it. And they would put a bite in your mouth, and and then they put pads here and they give you so many shocks for like a 3-second period. It's real quick. And it sends you into a seizure. And the seizure is just supposedly to reset your brain thought patterns. And this is what they believe to be done. Then the other treatment that they do is they tell you things verbally that shock you. That my dad was a terrible person and that he didn't love me and things like that. And of course, that shocked me. I was in isolation, I think, for the first 2 years. Then they transferred me to like an outdoor facility. And when I first got outside, my eyes couldn't handle the sunlight because I hadn't seen sunlight in so long that I had to wear sunglasses for years. And my eyes are still sensitive to sunlight since then. So if you're good, you get a step level up, and if you do even better, you get another step level up, and then you get privileges. In other words, you get to go to the cafeteria to eat. You get to go to group sessions instead of one-on-one sessions. I worked my way up so that I could get out. And so I ended up down in the gut of LA, and there's a place called Grapevine Row. And it's a row of cardboard houses where homeless people live, right downtown LA, which was probably about 1.5 miles or so away from the facility. I got arrested for vagrancy, and then they ID'd me, and I went back to Piscaloo.
I supervised her a couple times. She had a lot of issues pertaining both to mental health and substance abuse issues. She was revoked after about 6 months and did some time locally.
My case manager suggested that I get a therapy animal, that it would help my depression because I was majorly depressed about not seeing my children and being with my family. So I got Tyler. Well, Tyler was the hit of the neighborhood. And everybody wanted to meet Tyler. It wasn't me they wanted to meet. Cleveland Smith was a gang member in my neighborhood who ran the drugs and whatnot. And he was Jennifer's boss. Very scary to me, very intimidating individual. And he kidnapped my cat, Tyler, and held him for ransom for $40, which I didn't have. So I borrowed the money from a taxi cab driver that was a friend of mine, and I paid the $40, and a girl I didn't know showed up at my front door, and we exchanged and handed back. She handed me the cat, and I handed her the $40. And that evening, he came back and said I still owed him $40 more, and I said, well, I didn't have it. And he said, well, I have a check for you to cash. If you cash this check, you'll have the $40. So I went to the check cashing place. This is where I go to cash my Social Security check to pay my rent. And they had been there previously and couldn't cash it because the check was no good. It was Cleveland's girlfriend's mother's check, and it was her birthday. And so she wrote in a different amount on the check than what was there. And I said, well, that, you know, and she goes, well, my handwriting looks enough like my mom isn't gonna care, I'll let her know I did it. And naive me said, oh, well, sure, you know, and they waited out in the parking lot, and the police knew that they had given me the check, but yet there was nothing they could do because I was the person trying to cash the check. And so I was the one who got arrested for forgery and identity theft at that time.
That story's pretty common, and those people will recognize that someone like Jill or one of my other clients with mental health issues are easily manipulated. They figure that out really quickly, and they can convince those people to do something for them. I know of individuals that I've supervised that have been convinced to turn over their Social Security checks. I've seen clients that will sell their medications. So they will say they'll buy them from the individual, meet up with them, and just take them from them. And then your client's left without their medications. It happens all the time.
Things didn't work out with Jennifer and I living together, and I moved in with a guy named Alex. Alex is having a party over at someone else's house, so we get in the car and we drive over to his friend's house over by the State Police Department on Portland Road. And they decided that they need a beer run, and so they asked me to make the beer run, and I said sure, and gave me the keys. And I didn't know Alex had a car, but he's the one who had the keys. And so I was a little suspicious that, you know, whose car is this, you know? And when the police stopped, I pulled over right away. So I gave them the directions of where the house was, because I didn't know the address. And when they asked Alex, he said he didn't know anything about the car being stolen. I was in a 2-bedroom apartment. I slept in one bedroom, and the other bedroom was like my TV room, my back bedroom. It was terrible. I got assaulted. I got burglarized. Nothing was attached. Everything and anything could go out the door at any time. And people came in and out of my home that I didn't even know, and move in and move out. I got to the point where I couldn't handle it anymore. Not only did I not feel safe in my own home, then I felt like I didn't even have a home because the eviction notices that I couldn't meet the increases in rent. I didn't know how to budget the money out.
It was really interesting working with Jill when I first met her because I had never really met anyone like her. I was impressed with her resourcefulness at the time. She had an income of, I think, a little less than $700 a month. Her rent, I think, was $525 or $550. Just the lion's share of her money was going to rent, and the balance of it she was paying for cat food and quarters for laundry and bus passes and all the other things that you need, internet, cell phone service, and she was able to navigate all of it. She had a lot of different services that were working to support her.
I remember Commissioner Carlson contacting me about Jill, a person that she knew in the community that was suffering from a mental health crisis, and it fit very nicely with our crisis outreach response team in terms of follow-up. So I referred the information that I received over to our crisis outreach response team. At the time it was Deputy Rao and a clinician, and they went out and met with Jill and actually were able to help her through some of the issues that she was facing, the roadblocks, and help develop a safety plan and connected her with services.
Kevin Rao, the whole time that he had been trying to teach me something, and I couldn't understand the philosophy or the thought process, until one day when he came over and he said, put yourself, because someone had assaulted one of my cats, and so I'm calling 911 because they hurt my cat, and that was kind of on a regular basis, to the point where they just didn't come out anymore and they let me handle it. So he came over with his team, and they came over in plain clothes so that they wouldn't trigger my anxiety and things. And he said, Jill, put yourself in your cat's paws. Make yourself as important as the cat. Make yourself first, and then everything else will fall into place. And for some reason, the way he said it to me that day, it clicked.
When I first met Jill, she needed a lot of assistance. We did peer support. We've done a lot of different things. Budgeting, getting her signed up for housing, following through once she got her housing voucher, getting into other housing, getting her transferred into a bigger housing place where she had more stability, getting her to the point where she was able to go and take her own peer support training and be able to help out members of the community with her own story. So she has grown a lot.
So Sandy, who is my dearest friend, her and I went apartment hunting. No one wanted to rent to me because of where I lived. No one wanted to rent to me because of my income and my background, my criminal background. I was paying $35 and $45, and you know, pretty soon the little bit of money I had saved up for a deposit was gone because we had been looking for 7 months almost, it seemed like. And I kept getting extensions from City of Salem Housing so that I could look some more. And we came into this apartment in West Salem. It's beautiful. I get sentimental.
It has been so amazing for her to be there. It has stabilized her. It's such a pleasant environment. There are families that live there. She's struck up relationships with people that are her neighbors. She has a little garden that she is able to, her Serenity Garden, she calls it, that she's developed. So her apartment is really a place that's pleasant and inviting for her to be.
It's my home. It's home. It looks like home. It feels like home. And I have a lot of people to be thankful for getting there and for being there and being able to stay there and make it a home.
We want to get people to where they can become more self-sufficient. So where she's able to handle her own housing, do her housing recertification on her own. She doesn't need to come into me to help her organize her documents or fill out paperwork for her. And so I would start seeing her less as she became more reliant upon herself and less reliant upon me.
I went over to visit her one day and she was telling me that she had been interested in working for the Marion County Health Department as a peer support worker, and that the employees there had been encouraging her to sign up. She had that lived experience that we talked about and would be able to help other people and be able to give back. Well, in order for her to be able to be employed by Marion County, she had to pass a background check. And the way the administrative rules work, that background check had to be done by the Oregon Department of Human Services. She was supposed to describe what her various crimes were. I think she wasn't aware of some of them because they went all the way back to California and she only wrote about the Oregon ones. The original one from California was about cruelty to a child. So she didn't respond to that one. So her background check, because of the nature of that crime, and also because she wasn't 100% truthful, quote unquote, on the background check explanation, she was denied employment. So I went over to visit her and she said that she had been denied. And so I said, so what are we going to do about that? And she said, well, I've talked to people and there's no point. I can never be approved. I can never work. I will never be able to pass a background check. And so I said, well, we'll see about that.
There is a statement here that says I have a right to appeal it. Well, that's just what we're going to do, Jill. We're going to appeal this because this is something that I really want to do, Janet. This is something that I have something to contribute to, and I could learn and grow. I would get something the same out of it.
She told me her story for each one of the crimes, and then I helped type up the story so that she would have a full explanation of it. And what it taught me in hearing those stories and seeing the pieces of paper with the crime, I will never trust a background check on its face again. I can't imagine how any employer or anyone that's working with someone knows what someone's life story is by looking at those words on paper, because when you hear the real story and you see how it matches up, it's so completely different from I think the pictures that I had in my mind of what it might entail.
A lot of people have been arrested multiple times for the same type of crime, partly because they have a substance abuse issue that they haven't had addressed or a mental health issue that they haven't had addressed, and so they keep going through the system. I would just encourage people to talk to the individual and find out what that story is.
So she made the decision that she wanted to see her children, and she had been corresponding with them, I think, through Facebook. And it was over, I believe, the 4th of July weekend. And she needed a ride to go over to the apartment and to meet the daughters. And her younger daughter actually lives in Southern California. Her older daughter lives here in the Salem area. So I took her over there and we went in and she met them in the apartment. And her little grandchildren that she had never met, had a chance to reconnect with them. And now she has them over to her apartment. She goes to visit them at Christmas time. I remember she was so excited because she was putting gifts together for these grandchildren. So it was just a really wonderful opportunity for her to reconnect with family, the family that she really was never allowed to finally raise.
About a year ago, I was in a role where I would take some scholarship recipients to the Alternatives Conference in San Diego. And Jill was one of the people who was chosen for that scholarship. Her daughter is going to school down there. And so we got to meet her daughter and her daughter's friend for dinner. And it was so lovely to see them together. Just so much love and care, and adoration. It was really beautiful. And I think that really speaks to all the work that Jill's done all of these years.
When I started out and met Jill, I thought of her as someone that needed my help, that I was someone that had resources to bear and that I could come in and help organize her life and maybe get her from a place where she was to a place where she's better. And I think I was able to do that in a way, but what happened was she became my friend. And in a whole different way, I realized that I wasn't the one that was giving to her. She was the one that had given so much to me, that I was the one that really was the beneficiary of this relationship. And it's been such a pleasure and a blessing to have Jill in my life.
To whom it may concern, I would like to recommend Jill E. Shire as a candidate for a position with your organization. This recommendation is a very personal one, and one that should not be taken lightly. Jill E. Shire is my mother. I am the child, now 33 years old, that she was convicted of child neglect against. My childhood with her was very difficult and traumatic at times. In fact, there was an 11-year period in our lives where I would not speak to her at all. Due to my decision to exclude her from my life, she was not able to witness the birth of her 3 grandchildren and did not meet them until July 2014. Since our reunification, my mother has been consistent in her involvement in our lives, and I'm so grateful that she is in such a great place in her life. My mother is one of the most loving, loyal, and dedicated people you will ever meet. What I hope you will consider is that my mother's actions were a result of an entire lifetime of untreated mental illness. Her mental illness made her very vulnerable to people who took advantage of her. It took a long time for me to realize that it was her mental illness, not my mother, which did those things to me as a child. When I very cautiously reunited with my mother, I was quite surprised by how stable she had become through her hard work and dedication to take care of her mental health. She has an amazing support system and has consistently shown that she can manage her own mental health. Sincerely, Jill's oldest daughter.